Hi everyone, Comic Reviewer here, this time doing another Halloween film review, and this one is on Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein. Now as you know, Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein is meant to be a 1999 animated comedy horror film that was produced by the same studio behind the more recent Alvin and the Chipmunks cartoon, as well as the old 80s one. And for a time we did see the team behind Alvin and the Chipmunks work with Universal Studios in doing these kind of films where they would meet Universal monsters like Frankenstein in the first film, and the sequel that they did a year later known as the Wolfman. And there were plans to do a third one with Dracula that just didn't get off the ground. Now, the premise of the film is meant to be about the Chipmunks performing at a theme park similar to Universal Studios, known as Majestic Movie Studios. We see how they take a break from the concert, and we kind of see them eventually running into Dr. Victor Frankenstein, who is working on his monster. And of course, we see how at first the Chipmunks are afraid of Frankenstein's monster, but over time kind of start to understand that he's not really a bad guy. He's not really dangerous or anything. And this is kind of the moment where we see how the Chipmunks try and be Frankenstein's monster's friend, and at the same time we kind of see how Dr. Victor Frankenstein is determined to sort of work on his next big project. And I think what makes Michael Bell work as Dr. Victor Frankenstein is that he kind of gives this more sinister, more kind of menacing voice. And I think he really does nail that kind of menacing role feel. And I think for the most part, I would say the film is basically doing what an animated comedy horror film would. It's not taking itself seriously, and I think for the most part, when the film does want to take something serious, it does. And I think when you kind of got one scene where they end up on a theme park ride, and when it goes way too fast, you do see Alvin, Theodore, and Simon reverting back to their old classic look, as well as their older designs, which I think was a nice touch. And I think what's interesting is, in Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein, you do see Dave looking a bit like Dick Grayson from Batman the Animated Series. And I think for the most part, I feel like with the film itself is that there is a little bit of promotional brand in it. Like, yeah, they make it clear that Majestic Studio is supposed to be Universal Studios, and I kind of feel with one of the characters you've got, Mr. Yes Man, you can kind of tell he's not really a bad guy. He's just a guy who wants to keep his job and is just afraid of any more screw-ups, which for the most part does work. And I think when you've also got the opening, I think it works being in black and white at the start, because it's meant to be based on the old classic horror films when horror films were just starting out. And I think that was the point with films like Psycho, basically Dracula, and other films. It was meant to keep that old kind of black and white footage still intact. And I think for the most part the film definitely does have a message about accepting others and not judging a book by its cover. And I think it does nail that part well. So I think, to me at least, Alvin and the Chipmunks Meets Frankenstein is an okay film. I think for the most part, with 78 minutes, you can kind of tell they had to throw in as much as they could. And I think for it being a kind of comedy horror film, it's something I think little kids are going to enjoy. So I think this film definitely deserves a thumbs up. It's still good and still alright. So, Comic Reviewer here, signing out.